Alright guys, we're gonna make a video on the hydro shots. Alright, now this hydro shot is a great little gun. I will tell you that. When I'm using this thing, let me turn it around this way. That way you can see the name on this thing. When I'm using this thing in my apartment to wash my Mustang, which I do every single weekend, people come up to me and they say, where did you get that from? That is nice. Where did you get that from? You know, this is new to a lot of people. And then they ask me, you know, where are you getting the water from? And they look and they see that bucket there and they're like, oh, you getting it from the bucket? So, you know, everybody likes this thing. They really do. And most people around here want to wash their cars. And of course, you know, when you live in an apartment, you don't have a water source. So you have to make your own around here. And I've made my own with this hydro shot. Okay, now the way to save your hydro shot is to keep water coming in this thing here. Okay, you got to keep water coming in this thing and out that end. Okay, if you can keep that water coming through here, you won't burn up your motor in here. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if you burn up your motor in here, you might as well just take this whole thing and throw it in the trash. And these things are not cheap at all. So you really want to save yourself and save your hydro shot and keep it running good. Because when this thing gets clogged up, nothing wants to come out on this end. Hardly anything. So to keep this thing flowing right, you need to service this thing every single time you use it. Okay? I use this thing, as I just told you, to wash my Mustang every single weekend. And every single weekend, I have to service this thing after I'm finished washing my Mustang. After I'm finished washing, I have to service this thing every single time. Because if I don't, this thing right here will not shoot the water out the way I want it to. It will barely shoot the water out. And if it shoots out at like a low pressure. And that's not enough for me to wash my car. I need a lot of pressure to wash that car. Or I need pressure to wash the car. I don't know what you guys are going to be washing. Or whatever you wash, you do need some sort of pressure. The first thing that will stop this thing from shooting the water out is these lines right here. If these lines get bent, the water's not going to come out of here. So you always want to keep these lines straight and not bent. Okay? That's important. And you want to keep your filters clean as well. Because a bent line or a clogged filter can keep this thing working correctly. And like I say, a bent line and a filter can burn up the motor in here. If those lines are bent and that filter's not clean, you will burn up your motor and you'll be buying a new one. Because once you burn up this motor, this thing will not work at all. I promise you, it will not work. Okay? So, here is the first filter. We have two filters in this thing. Here's the first filter. Okay? Can y'all see that? That's the first filter. Okay? So we want to take this off. And there's that one filter right there. See that? That's the first filter. Okay? So this filter hardly ever gets clogged up for what I'm using it for. And when you put it down in there, you want to push it down in there because see. Oh, and another thing. Okay. See that seal? that still has to go down inside there. You can't just put it in there and just leave it. That's not how it works. You have to push this thing down inside here, and then it will seal, and it will be fine. See that? Okay? And screw that back on there with your hand, and you should be good. Now, I think like it's bent. Now, I hardly ever have to clean this filter, and that's mainly because I use clean water. I use clean water to wash my car. I don't know what you guys are going to be doing, but whatever you're doing, you probably need to be power washing with clean water, okay? Because you definitely don't want to clog this thing up, okay? So that's one end, okay? Oh, and another thing, you want to keep these hoses. You always want to be looking at these hoses and make sure they're not bent. If they're bent, you can damage the hose. These hoses are not the greatest hoses in the world, but they work. As long as you do what you have to do, these hoses will work just fine. Okay? And do not bend these hoses, because if you bend them, that can damage the hose and have the hose to have like a permanent crease in it, and that's not what you want. You don't want that. You want the hose to look like that, not to be crinkled over. And as you can see, I had one that had gotten crinkled too bad, and I had to put a piece of duct tape around there to give the hose the round, to make the hose round instead of flat, crinkled over flat. Because crinkled over and flat, you won't have pressure coming through your hydro shot. You won't have any water coming through your hydro shot if this thing is flat, okay? Or if the filters are clogged, you're not going to have water coming through your hydro shot, and that can burn up the hydro shot, okay? So, now, we have another filter here, which is here. The other filter is going to be in here, okay? As you guys can see, there is a block. It looks square right there, square right there, square. That is for you putting a pair of pliers around there and getting that off of there. Okay? Now, see what I'm doing? Don't put it here because you'll mess this thing up. Put it here. Okay? That's where you want to be taking it off at. Right there. Pair of pliers. We'll take them off. See how that comes off? Comes off just fine. Now, you see that little O-ring in there? This O-ring, when I first bought it, it was so dry, it almost pushed this thing out. So you want to put that back down inside there, and you want it to look just like that. Put some grease around there. I use Vaseline. Vaseline works just fine. Put it all the way around that gasket because you want that thing to be nice and lubed in there. You don't want it to be dried out. You don't want that. Okay, now, let's see. Now, we have the filter. I use this thing right here. You can use whatever you want to use. Okay? Can you guys see the filter down in there? Okay, it's right there. Okay? So you want to get that filter out of there. And I just take this thing, you see what I'm doing? Take this thing and kind of push it out of there. Okay? But when you're doing that, you don't want to damage the screen in there. Okay? You want to be gentle with this thing. See how it popped out of there? And just take that thing and come up in the backside and pop it right out. Okay? Now, that is the filter. Okay? The filter on both sides. As you can see, mine is clean. I've already cleaned it. Okay? So if yours is dirty, which it will be dirty, I promise you, after you finish doing washing your car or washing your walls or whatever the hell you're washing, excuse my language, whatever you're washing, this thing will get dirty when you finish. So you want to keep that screen clean. Okay? Run it under some water. Run it under some water in your bathroom or whatever source that you have. I take mine to the bathroom, run it under some water, and get all that dirt off of there. Once the dirt is off of there, put it back in there, and put this back on. Okay, when you put it on, make sure this thing is not sitting like that, because crooked. Make sure it's straight. You want that thing to be straight, and you want to be able to screw it in. Screw it in by hand first, and then take your pliers and tighten it down with the pair of pliers, but not too tight that you will mess up your threads in here. Because once you mess up your threads, this thing is no more good. Okay? I don't even know anybody that can repair plastic threads. I'd imagine it could be done. I don't know how to do it, and I'm a mechanic. I've never replaced plastic threads before. Okay, it can be done, maybe not. I don't know, but save yourself a lot of headache. Put it in there where I told you to put it in there. Don't tighten it down too tight, because if you do, you can mess up your threads. Okay, now, I think that's practically about it. Now, when you use this thing, of course, it's going to take a couple seconds for this thing to pump the water through here, through the lines, back up through here. It's going to take a couple seconds to do that. But that's all it should take, is a couple seconds. It shouldn't take, you shouldn't be sitting up here holding this thing for a minute or even a half a minute. It shouldn't take no more than a couple seconds to pump that water through here and through the gun. And if it's still not doing that, you need to find out why it's not doing that. Okay? And as I just explained, that filter and this hose can cause that. Okay? If this hose is crinkled up in any type of way, or if something is sitting on top of it, you can stop the flow of water coming through here, which will burn up your pump. Okay? So just make sure your hose is straight. Make sure that it's not crinkled in any spots. And now this one right here, I couldn't put duct tape because I had bent this one. This one goes up to your gun. I had bent this one, so what I had to do was I had to loosen this up by hand, pull this down, okay, pull this off of here. You can just pull off with your hand now that you got this off, and cut out the bad piece in there, okay, and then push it back up in there, put all this back together, and you should be ready to go again. But you want to keep this as straight as possible, and try not to crinkle this thing out too bad. Try your best not to do that, because you don't want to keep cutting into this line, because before you know it, this 10 feet of hose will be a foot of hose, because you've been cutting on it all the time. So we don't want to keep cutting into this thing. Just do your best not to bend this thing a lot. Okay? If you feel that when you lay it down you're going to bend it, pull this out of here. Okay? That way you don't bend this piece in here. You don't bend this hose. And I think that's practically about it, really. That will just doing these things actually will save your pressure wash. It will save it. Okay? So I think that's the end of the video. Alright guys, I'm out here. See y'all later. Bye now.